All set.
Great, thanks. Good evening, everyone. It's 6:35, Monday, April 12th. This working meeting is to go over where we stand with our Parks and Rec ice rink, subcommittee and I, as well as Tiger and John and Steve and John. We've all been working diligently throughout the last couple of months and weeks, and really digging deep into locations that we think are very suitable for the rink. So what we're going to do tonight is just go over locations that we've been out to, investigated, and what we have come up with. Just so everyone is aware, the next couple steps for us as a subcommittee and Parks and Rec department would be to really analyze the cost of and breaking down the cost of the actual, I'd say yearly dues for the ice rink itself. And given that every year we look to improve as we get better at this. As obviously the first year is the first year with anything, it's going to be a learning curve, but we're all very confident here. So a couple locations that we've viewed. Obviously there's a list of them. I'll give you a list of the top 4 that we've really started looking at, gone out to them and broken them down. So the first one would be the Mead Park grass field. That's our kind of our last option. The water line into the property, we would have to dig up and rebury it deep enough below the frost line. So right now the water gets shut off on the property before the winter. So we don't have a broken water line. The other issue we have right now is that field is not completely level. And with an ice rink, you obviously want it as level as possible, so you don't have 1 inch of ice versus 8 inches, or 1 inch of water versus 8 inches of water when you're going to freeze an ice rink. So another big thing there would be we're going to have to bring in soil to level off the field. And then by the season's over, you're gonna have to take the soil out. So that's a big cost right there. But it is an option, and right now it's not a good option for us. But we do have it on our paper. Power would be from Mead Street as well. You'd have to bring it in, which is another additional cost. So that's, right off the bat, we're in, it's very costly to go to that location. Second location that we've looked at would be Kiwanis. Obviously, we'd have to get power into the location, and then from there you'd have to work around working with the Christmas trees, the wreaths, and the other parties that use the location during the winter. Lighting and noise would not be anything outside of what is against the town ordinances. This is all, nothing is any high powered machinery or anything like that. No. So that's a good thing that we have on our side here. The other part with Kiwanis would be the parking. Obviously there's parking there, but you're taking up some of that space in the front. Then it's going to create a little bit of a traffic disparity there. So there's pros and cons. I think that the increased traffic and the power in is one of those things that we have to kind of weigh ourselves and really look into it more and more. Our third location would be up at Waveney in the where the turf field is. It's the smaller turf field. This is a great spot. It's a great location. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that when we were talking about it, it seemed great. The lights were already there. You'd have to bring in a little shed, which you're gonna have to do anyway. But the biggest issue with this location that we saw would be the putting the rink on the turf, and just having that liability if anything were to ever happen to the turf. What I'm working with a company to, if we ever were to use this location or consider it more in depth, I'm working with a company to come out, look at the rink, look at the location, and they would also look at how to not guarantee, but make us feel better about the rink not destroying our new turf field. As we all know, they do these rinks at Yankee Stadium and Fenway Park, and the grass that's real grass that seems to come back. So I've seen it done before, and I think it's more just getting a company that installs turf and works on turf to kind of give us a letter or something in writing. And the last location is going to be up at Waveney, near the the girls softball field and the men's softball field, right where the bathroom is, the little hut. The parking lot up there is a great space for this. There's a transformer there. There's water there. The area is very large. So there's very minimal work to winterize the space for us. The only thing that would be really up there is getting all of our equipment set, and which is all locations right now, but getting the equipment set and kind of using our space wisely up there, so we're not unorganized really with that location. And the subcommittee and we've talked, Tiger, myself, Steve, John, we've all went out and met at these locations. So there's been work started and completed. That's our list of the top areas right now, and we're still working on it, but we think that we really like that Waveney parking lot location. We really like all these locations, just because of the accessibility, and we think that it'd be great locations for town use as well.
Jake, do you want to open it up to questions, or is there time? Maybe Steve or John or Tiger would like to add anything at this moment before questions?
Yeah, I'd like to let the subcommittee talk, and then Steve, Tiger, and John, you guys are right after that. You guys are welcome to talk, and then we'll open up to questions. Everyone else. Hank, you're muted.
Okay, it seems to me, Jake, that from what you said, Waveney appears to be right now the best possibility. It seems to have everything, parking, space, water, electricity. I also think that it appears to me that Waveney would probably upset fewer people. My guess is that even with a great deal of insurances, many of the baseball leagues, baseball teams that play at Mead are not going to be really too happy if this is on a turf field.
Right.
As I mentioned to you on a phone call we had, I've been told so already, unsolicited. I've been approached, And
You're absolutely right that Waveney is the least.
well, well, it's Mead, but Waveney also, I think, is the same thing. Will also upset people. The Exchange Club, again, unsolicited. I was approached in the Exchange Club, said, we're probably we'd be unhappy about this,
Right.
and would probably try to fight it. And I think that probably Waveney has more neighbors in close proximity.
You mean Kiwanis?
I'm sorry, Kiwanis. Excuse me. Kiwanis has more neighbors in close proximity than any of the other parks. So Waveney, at least on the face of it, looks to me to be pretty close to ideal.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you have the paddle hut there already. You have Waveney's kind of already, as I like to look at it, as a commercial space, which is we're not really drifting far off of that if we were to go to Waveney. So I think that you're going to upset less people, and it's going to be less obtrusive to anyone at Waveney.
Rhonda, do you want to weigh in here? So maybe we should then go to,
maybe the guys, I would think the experts.
Steve, Tiger, and John.
Tiger then.
Steve, you want to go first?
Sure. All right. Yeah, I think we looked at the turf field, and I think I agree with Jake. The concern there is not just putting the rink on it for 3 months, but there's the weight of the ice, the water, and what that effect have on your turf surface, and could it damage the grass blades? Once they go flat, they're not going to come back up. They're synthetic fabric. But I think the parking lot has a lot of pluses. We have 480-volt 3-phase service there for the transformer. I looked at the compressor. The compressor requires either 460 or 480 volt, 200 amps. We have 200 amps in the building. It wouldn't be hard to winterize the bathroom building to make it so it could be utilized. You could bring a trailer in for your skate sharpening, skate rental. You'd have to light the rink, which you could do very easily. So that's got the parking lot's got a lot of pluses for it. So I think that might be an ideal spot. You were mentioned that we might be resurfacing that parking lot, repaving it. That's a plus. That would be easy to plow in the winter. So you got access to it, which would be fine. The one spot we did not look at, which I could throw in the mix, is that the commuter. I realize commuter parking will be coming back, but at the present time, the topmost tier parking lot at Tamage Hill is empty. No one uses it, and you could easily bring sand in or whatever, level it, and put your rink there. You have 3-phase power right there on the road. You got a pump station because there's a pump station there for water to Darien, so you get water. It didn't matter. You needed to bring in bathrooms and portable bathrooms. You had to bring in the trailer there. But that's another spot we could look at. But I think the Waveney parking lot is probably your best spot. The only thing is it is cold up there. The wind does blow in the winter, but there's no protection. But I don't think the same thing may happen at Kiwanis too. So.
That's winter for you.
Yeah.
Steve, it seems to me that Talmadge Hill, even though if it works, it's pretty far for a lot of people who live in New Canaan. It's not as central as Waveney is, I think, to the population in New Canaan.
It's not central, but the parking lots are lit, 7 days a week from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. So extra lighting from the rink is not going to bother anybody who may live close by. But you're right, it's on the outskirts of town. It's not located centrally. So I think it's where Waveney parking lot's probably the best spot.
Thanks, Steve.
Tiger, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. Like Steve said,
Tiger, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I muted myself, then unmuted myself. So much for being the host. As Steve said, we looked at every site. I did have concerns on the turf only because, like Steve said, if the fibers lay over, but if we can get somebody to say no, I'm willing to listen. I just but if the moment that they lay over, we can't get them back up, it's not the best alternative. But we did look at the others, and we are planning on resurfacing or surfacing, I should say, since Waveney's just been the large lot's just been a milled surface that's been hammered in place by the sun and by traffic. we are looking at paving that now. And I spoke to a contractor about how level he could get that lower section. Normally you have a percent cross slope, and he thinks that he can get down to about a 0.5% cross slope. So in that, you won't have that much difference in water, as far as it goes across the entire surface. Especially if we put the cross slope on the short side. So there's a lot to be said about that area. Steve said it's nice. It's tucked into the corner. I talked to the highway department. There's enough ample room to move around it, plow around it, do what they have to do. Parks Department, John said the exact same thing. So, and then you can rehab the bathrooms, which would be a nice add. Kind of an adjunct is to winterize those so we can actually have them for the winter, since Waving is getting a lot of use during the winter as well. We don't necessarily have facilities for people in the wintertime. So that's kind of a bonus to the thought process. So that's where my thoughts were. I don't know, John, if you had anything else.
No, I don't have much more to add. You guys have hit it right on the head. Out of these locations, I think by far, the Waveney is the best one for a lot of reasons. My main reason, of course, I don't want it on a baseball field. The varsity baseball field is different than Yankee Stadium and Fenway Park. Is they're doing it for a short period of time, and they also have all the money in the world to make it back to where it is. With that said, we'll also clean up that parking lot. I think we could improve the area by you paving it, and we have some drainage issues that were easy to correct at the same time. So I like the idea up at Waveney. I think the only downside at all is that it's windy up there. It's cold on a warm day, but it is skating, and you should be prepared to be outside. That's it.
Great, thanks, John. Okay, we'll if anyone, we'll open it up to questions here.
If I may ask a question, Jake.
You're saying
This is for Tiger. Tiger, do you think the town will be open to winterizing the restrooms? Is that a large expense, or is that pretty minimal as these things go?
We just started looking at that. As a matter of fact, Steve and John and I, when we were out there, we don't have a definitive cost yet, but we don't feel it would be that cost prohibitive to have that done.
Jake,
Yes, sir.
just on the question, are you expecting that we'll put this to a vote in front of the commission at this coming meeting this Wednesday, or
Yes, that would
do you want to
be.
hold off on that?
No, that would be our plan, to put it to a vote on Wednesday.
I would just add that it is on the agenda for Wednesday night, Jake. We confirmed we put that on there. So obviously the subcommittee would then present to Parks and Rec, and the commission would vote as a whole if the ultimate.
Right, sorry.
As choose. Yeah, just confirming that is in fact there. And then I know that after this meeting, you'll publish the notes that will include your pros and cons of the 4 locations.
Yep.
So for those that didn't get all of it, or came in last minute, or couldn't hear, I know that one of our members of Parks and Rec is on the phone from the West Coast, so that's always good there. And then you just might want to look at the chat box to see what others are saying. I think there's a couple that came in.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry.
Hello.
Hey, Gene Goodman here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
Gene.
I have a couple comments. When we talk about costs and more costs here, more costs there, I don't disagree with that, but without having costs, it's all kind of hard to say that this cost is more costly if it's $5,000 versus $100,000. Obviously, there's a large difference there. So I think to look at this intelligently, we would need to understand, for instance, when we say it's not costly to bring power into the parking lot, versus say a Kiwanis as an example, or a different location without having some actual numbers, it's really, it doesn't mean anything to say it's more costly. I'll make another comment. By the way, I agree and I appreciate the comments that the parking lot is a very windy and cold place. And I have spoken to people who run rinks, and they do say that on a sunny day and it's cold and windy, they have less attendance than when it's not cold and windy. And it makes a big difference. So it is an outdoor place, but that's a negative. Last comment is that at least who have been looking at this project for 3 years basically, and talked to many people and visit operations, that we've always envisioned having an enclosed space and not a trailer, which is an enclosed space, but a much larger and family-friendly enclosed place where people could relax. And relaxing in an 8-foot wide trailer is really not, a good experience, really. You don't really relax and spread out and have snacks. I mean, you couldn't get past a group of people very easily if they're snacking with their kids. So we've always envisioned a largest area, which is one reason why we have felt, and it hasn't even been mentioned, that the pavilion is a real plus. And I do realize that there are neighbors at Kiwanis and there's an exchange club, and those are clearly not pluses. And the parking lot does have pluses of lighting not bothering people, and there's parking there. And I, by the way, agree that I think there's plenty of parking at Kiwanis for this. We're not anticipating 100 cars, for instance, parking. We're anticipating like 100 people would be a very full day, and they usually come in families. And you're probably talking about 30 cars or 40 cars at a peak season.
Now, Gene, if I may,
Yes.
the only reason I say this is used to work at an ice rink, working in construction during the winter when it snows like we did this year. I'm not paying to have snow removed from the property so people can park. That's why I'm saying parking is an issue. Waveney, I can put snow anywhere. I can put, I don't know where you came up with a trailer of 8 feet wide, but I can put a tent there. I can put all this stuff at Waveney with it, and I know that I have parking everywhere at Waveney, because a year like this year where we had 65 plus inches of snow, when you go to do snow removal, you have to remember you're also doing snow removal off of the ice rink now as well. And that snow needs to go somewhere on top of it.
And that is right. And there's room at Kiwanis to put the snow after you remove it from the rink, which has to be removed at the parking lot as well. And there is room at the Kiwanis to remove the snow. But coming back to the trailers, you just said trailers, I believe. I'm not, we're envisioning something which is not trailers. It's much larger than trailers and much more family friendly, et cetera, user friendly. And not to say that it has to be that, but that's trailers are a minus. They're not a plus, they're a minus. And putting up a tent every year, and again, with coming back to the question of no costs have been provided whatsoever, putting up a tent every year with a wooden floor is substantially more money than bringing in trailers in fact, than say Kiwanis, I'm sorry, than having Kiwanis there. So without some of those costs and the consideration, again, that trailers are not what we are envisioning, I couldn't say that the parking lot, which has its advantages, is better. That's my maybe 10 cents. I took more than 2 cents time. My apologies.
It's okay. I don't know where the trailers came from. I don't think I said it, but again, I understand the trailers are an eyesore, and that having a tent would be larger and nicer and more friendly of an environment. And I'm not against it. I'm not, again, we're still working on the pricing. This is a working meeting here. I'm going to reach out to, I'm going to really reach out to a tent company, and I'm going to try and get some accurate numbers before we meet on Wednesday.
Well, I have spoken to tent companies, and of course you can different ones, different quotes, et cetera, et cetera. They're expensive. And again, they have to have a wooden floor. They are expensive, and to do it every year is costly. And again, without some numbers, but hopefully, but I don't know if you're going to have these numbers by Wednesday, and there'll be time to examine them, kick them around. So Wednesday, day after tomorrow, might be, in my opinion, a little preliminary, because at this point in time, we don't have any of these cost numbers, including the ones for the electrical connections at the various locations.
Hey, Jake, I just want to remind you, you guys were tasked to find the best location. I don't know necessarily you were tasked with finding every single cost to run this ice rink, because it hasn't been made clear to me as chair of Parks and Rec that Parks and Rec would run the ice rink or control the operation. So I know Gene has a unlimited knowledge of the research behind the ice rink, and because of him and Tom O'Day and some other people, they were able to secure the trailers and whatever has been put in the park.
Mhm.
So, some round numbers.
Yeah, and
Really
again,
helpful.
that's something I can throw together before Wednesday. Is I can get ballpark numbers, and we can just kind of work from there. And as you were saying, like, our committee is, we were only asked to find a location. This is all the financials are still working, and that's just another aspect of this moving of this as I like to call it, the Ferris wheel here.
Well, no disagreement for me in terms of the concept, but in terms of the practicalities, when you say best location, it's like when you go in to buy a car. Yes, cost is a factor. So from an engineering point of view, probably the parking lot is the best location from a straight engineering point of view, but best location is not just an engineering exercise. But again, I probably said more than anyone else. My apologies. And
Hello.
Lily, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yeah, Lily Gruber, budding neighbor, John Gruber. I really appreciate all the work you guys have done on this. I've been waiting and waiting for this moment, because we've been told ongoing basis that the committee would update us on their research. But I've never really heard much in the year specifically on this. But there's been so much great work on Kiwanis that Ron and Steve and a whole bunch of other people have been doing for other plants for Kiwanis, that I'm very excited for the future of Kiwanis, with all the really great ideas we even discussed just last week. But what I wanted to point out is that of the 5 places you just discussed today, 4 out of the 5 of them impact neighborhoods negatively, not at all. Only 1 dramatically impacts the neighborhood, because the Kiwanis Park is extremely residentially dense. And of course, it'll really affect our 24/7 quality of life to see the lights, listen to the music, hear the 15-year-old compressors, deal with the noise pollution, etc. I'm not going to go into that depth, but in a situation where you have 5 options, and I actually have a few on my list that I'd love to talk about, such as the land swap that we did for Avalon at the transfer station. I'd love to look a little bit over the flat parking lot behind the Y, Irwin Park, Buchanan Nature Center, the mulch pile, the Roland plan originally. But if you guys have already done that, that's fine. But if you look at that, that's 9 out of 10 places that have been bantied about that have no effect on any resident of this town, and only 1 dramatically affects about dozens of houses and hundreds of people inhabiting them and proximate neighbors. So while that may have been the dream 3 years ago, or when you purchased the equipment without having a home for it in advance, I hope that maybe the priority would be, first, do no harm, do not harm the neighbors. And for this group of people who want to have hockey games or ice skate, who like a decade ago wanted to put this on the mulch pile over at Lapham, to really at least consider what they're doing to the rest of the people who have to live with the impact. So maybe we don't have the ideal fantasy carousel land of the perfect little, non-cold, I guess, non-windy, envisioned enclosed space, but maybe a whole bunch of people who live here and pay taxes and who are residents have a quality of life. And frankly, if you look at the Kiwanis deed, it is for in-town people. And so if you want to start having hockey games against other towns, or you're going to need out-of-towners to support the ice rinks insurance and upkeep, as other towns in Fairfield County have had to do in order to make it financially viable, Kiwanis is got a deed that restricts that use, while Waveney already allows out-of-towners into the pool. And also maybe try to embrace a nice thing like, wow, if we have it at Waveney, sure, there's a trailer, but wow, you also can have a nice family day and pop over and play some paddle tennis and warm up in that gorgeous, gorgeous lodge. Or make it a family outing day. There's 6 buildings at Waveney that could also be accessed potentially for this, instead of one tiny little bathroom snack bar hut in Kiwanis. So I really appreciate that you guys have opened your minds, especially the work that Hank and Steve and Jake have been talking about this athletic field. And I really hope you could prioritize quality of life for everybody, just not the people who are going to enjoy this, but the people who have to live with it. And 4 out of your 5 locations are fantastic and not affecting anyone. 9 out of 10 if we look at the others. And that's all I wanted to say. First, do no harm, please.
I appreciate it, Lily. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Gene Goodman has a comment. If you can hear me.
Yep, go ahead, Gene.
Regarding the comments just made, which are generally valid, the 6 buildings at Waveney are not well situated towards the parking lot in terms of walking, 500 feet or 1,000 feet away to another building. And by the way, the small pavilion is not that small. We would enclose the roof line, and there's about 2,500 square feet available, or I'm sorry, about more like 2,000 square feet available once it's temporarily enclosed.
That sounds
So
expensive.
it's a very adequate size space, and it's right there. It would be right next to the rink versus, again, 500 feet away or something like that. So I would just bring that up to part of the really, when you get into the details of all this, a lot of people say, hey, why not go to Mead Park, or Irwin Park was just mentioned. Well, there are deed restrictions against Irwin Park. You can't do it there. And I'm not trying to knock it down or anything. I'm just saying that there's a lot of details here, which this brief summary just doesn't address properly. And the lady just brought up some interesting points too, pros and cons as well. And it takes a bit more, I think, time and research and bantering around to separate and to quantify, again, coming back to as municipal expenses. Is it a $100,000 difference or $200,000 difference or $25,000 difference? We're just throwing around pluses and minuses without quantifying them. So
Again, Gene.
I'm up to 15 cents worth and 20 cents worth now. My apologies.
Yeah, it's Gene, it's all right. We're working on ballparking stuff, but again, like I've said, our subcommittee was, we were strictly put to find a location, and we will then work on getting the financials in line with everything. And that's just kind of where we stand during this working meeting.
Gene, you are aware that the deed restrictions at Irwin are actually being discussed by First Selectman Moynihan about something else, I think. I'm not really sure what he's at. So there's always discussion that can be done with something like Irwin. And, walking 500 feet to an ice skating rink in a building, it's not too much to ask for, since supposedly this is all for exercise. So if a bunch of hockey moms are dropping their kids off, instead of them idling their SUV in my backyard and causing pollution and me reporting them to the police 10 times a night for not turning it off after 3 minutes, they could stay warm in many buildings in Waveney and take that 500-foot stroll as part of the exercise aspect of this.
Well, that's another point I'd like to run by you. We're not envisioning this as primarily hockey. There won't be moms idling their cars, just like when they go to a South School play at night, they don't sit outside in their cars idling them. So I don't know, I've heard this before, and that's not what's going to happen. They're not going to drop their kids off and just idle it, and we're not going to primarily be promoting hockey. We're doing family recreational stuff, and when the kids are out there with their family, and they want, after half an hour, and some of these kids are 4, 5, 6 years old, they want to take a break. They don't walk 500 feet or 1,000 feet and then come back, put their skates on, put their skates off. Our envision is that we'd have a spot right there. We'll have mats going from the tent or whatever it is. They walk out, they keep their skates on, they walk back when they're tired, they're hungry, want to take a little break. They sit down at a table enclosed without the wind blowing, and they unbutton their jacket and they have their soda or their drink or their sandwich, whatever. So again, I'm not trying to say people are misrepresenting things. It's just a question of, when you really understand what we're trying to do, there's a lot of misinformation going around, and it's the 500 thing is a long thing. It's like going to a movie theater and saying you're going to walk 500 feet to get a snack and then come back.
Yeah,
it's
so
really-
maybe this is something, Gene, you can talk about once location has been put
Yeah.
forth and it's been voted upon, and you certainly would know a little more about the operations and how you'd like to see it, since this is something you've kind of prompted and put out there and made happen. So we appreciate that. I think for this and the working meeting and what Jake's doing, and I don't want to be too quick to counter each comment we get from the public, since it's kind of an open working meeting.
And by the way, I would love it if Irwin Park was opened up. I've been there, I've checked it out, and as you just commented, in fact, the current deed restrictions are substantial, but it would be a wonderful thing if that would be opened up, because it does have a lot of potential as well.
All right. Thanks, Gene. Yes.
Betty, you had your hand up. Do you want to speak? You took it back down again. I don't know if it.
Robin Fletcher and.
It's me.
Hi there. I just wanted to ask a couple questions about sort of the plan for operating it. So is it going to be a 7-day-a-week kind of facility? What months would it start? What months would it be decommissioned? What would sort of the envision about having actual team practices there be? Is it big enough? Is it not big enough? What about noise? Just those considerations. We just haven't really heard a lot about actually the operation of the facility.
Okay, so the rink is not full size. The rink is 160 by 65 feet or 80 feet. So it's not a full size rink. A full size rink is 200 feet by 85 feet. So no games, obviously. There no, the point of this would be for strictly public public for kids to go hang out, enjoy skating and hanging with friends, and just something along those lines. Kind of like a teen center, just like an ice rink in a way.
And what was sort of the hours? Would this be like 7 days a week, or and what would the hours of operation be? I know that's a little further down, but I'm just curious if there was some thinking around that.
I haven't actually gotten into that yet, but obviously the hours will be in the noise ordinances of the town. Okay. Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday are obviously all different. We will work within everything with the noise ordinances in the town. As far as timing goes, realistically, you're looking at, you look at when your cold temperatures really come in and when it starts to warm up again. And a big factor with an ice rink is the actual, the angle of the sun and how close it gets, because it could be -10 out and February 28th, and your ice rink is still going to melt because of how close the sun is. So it's all, you're looking at the second week of November, and you're going to go to probably the first week of March if the weather is cooperating correctly, before it becomes outrageous to run the rink. Based on wet temperatures, etc.
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Angela?
Yeah, hi. I've heard you guys talk repeatedly about there not being hockey games or team sports there, but I met with Tom O'Day probably about 6 to 8 months ago, and he clearly told me he's been in contact with several Pee Wee hockey teams that they intend on using that rink for practices. And so how does that fit into just recreational skating for town residents? Now I'm hearing from Tom's mouth, who's on the board of the people that are sponsoring this activity, that he intends on renting it to Pee Wee teams. Is that off the table?
I'll be honest with you, that's news to us. I can give a call to Tom tomorrow, and again, this is not a full-size ice rink, so I don't know what you're benefiting by renting out ice or having a team practice there, especially someone that, an older group. This is, you're on top of each other, and it's not, no, I don't think any team would want to do that in general.
I get it. I'm just repeating what Tom's told me.
And,
You know, I
and I
know Tom
appreciate
well.
that.
And I just want to get it on the table.
And our
And
subcommittee
the
will
other
reach
thing
out
is,
to him.
and the other thing is, you guys haven't addressed the hours. What are the hours that they intend on operating this thing?
And like I just said in my previous statement was, we haven't really dug into that yet. And when we do, everything that we do will be in town ordinances, within the town ordinance. So if noise is on Monday through Friday, if noise is from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., we will be within that noise ordinance. From our property line, decibel meter, we will abide by all town rules.
Thank you.
Angelo, I've heard the same thing that you have, and I know a lot of other people have too, especially because Tom O'Day was trying to get the whole hockey arena thing going over on the mulch pile. That was the whole goal of this, and it's just a continuation. And it's just another 40 feet that perhaps wherever this thing gets put in the first place is going to get added onto in the second place. So it's a concern when you open it up that this is where it's going to go, because that's been other people's dreams, very vocal, influential people.
Understood. Again, that's news to us about renting out the ice to peewee teams and not just using it for recreational use. Again, this is an ice rink. It's not like a garden hose. It's not like we're just going to add 40 feet to an ice rink and you're going to see it one day. This is you got to buy a whole new system, and so I understand what you're saying, but there are a lot of moving parts to this, and again, we're all trying to. This is the first year. We're all trying to just kind of get through this and pick where we think is the best location.
Oh, I appreciate that, and I totally agree. But you know how things go. The first place something is dumped is where it stays, and then there'll be talks about, oh, let's expand the ice rink in Kiwanis. It's just like the stop sign at the corner of Marvin Ridge and Nursery Road was only supposed to be temporary, and it never got taken back. So things that are temporary are the first place they're going to put an expansion. So you have to guard for the future,
Understood.
not just the current thing, especially when people who are heavily involved and heavily influential have made it very clear what their hockey situation is. I did want to ask completely separately, did anybody ever look at, we had these big land swaps to with Avalon and the transfer station, and we actually have acres of parkland at the transfer station that's not being used, obviously, for parkland. Did anybody look at that land swap, Millport Avalon at all for this?
The Millport, we have not, as far as I know of. I know that that is being, I think, rented out right now, and it is for the next couple of years.
For what?
I believe it's for construction.
Yeah, but it's parkland under your auspices.
Jake, I can answer that question.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
The land swap at the landfill up on top, there was a flat area and then there was some area which goes down below, which was designated as a swap for the 3 acres that they took when they built Avalon over by Mill Pond. I don't know if it's really suitable. Access is the biggest problem, because there is no access to that section of the property for unless the landfill and the dump is open all the time. Otherwise, it's gated and locked, so there's really no access to it.
Well, it's
The other
also,
question too is
there's a DEP permit associated with it. A, B, it's the area where we store snow and we store debris for storms. That upper flat area, it's the only flat area in the entire, what you might call park. The entire 30-acre parcel was deemed open space, but it houses the transfer station, the wastewater plant, the highway department, and animal control, as well as areas for the police department and other departments to store materials.
Right, but where are the 3 acres that are considered legally parkland that we swapped for Avalon?
They're on the hillside. They're not.
Like that nice flat top where you're just renting out.
That flat top, as I just mentioned, is DEP permitted for a snow removal and disposal area and a debris disposal area. It's the only one that we have in town for any storm related incident. So
And where's the parkland in relation to that?
I'd have to find the parkland. The entire parcel's listed as open space, so I don't know exactly what happened during the swap.
Yeah, 3 acres of your 30 are supposed to be parkland for townspeople, for residents. That was the whole agreement.
Imagine it's on the backside on the slope. You know, the parcel, it doesn't, I'd have to look at the deed, but I don't think that it would be any area that's usable. There isn't one spot on the site that's flat enough for a rink, that's large enough and flat enough for a rink.
The top of the hill where the construction equipment seems.
I just mentioned exactly what that site is for in that area, and plus it's not big enough. A, B, there's a liner underneath it, and it's the only area in town that is DEP sanctioned for the work that we need to do. So to put a rink on top of it and then have a storm in the middle of in the winter, it's counterproductive at that point.
Oh, okay, I appreciate that. Maybe we would swap you for the land.
Thanks, Tiger.
Hey, Jake, one other point.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Steve. Betty, I see your question in the notes, Betty. Sorry about that. I'll let Steve answer the question or Tiger answer the question, but I don't believe the tennis courts would be a good viable option for us. I know that those posts are set into, believe concrete into the tennis courts as it is. So I think your spacing already is not going to work. Just to even lay the rink out.
Yeah, that was a problem with posts.
Betty, you're muted.
They had a problem with Westport with posts, and then they had permafrost affected with the court surface.
Betty, you're muted. There you go.
Going back on the tennis courts, the purchase was made from the Fairfield Hunt Club. And during the winter, that Hunt Club used that ice skating rink, the same one that we purchased, on their tennis courts. So how is it that the Hunt Club was able to use it on the tennis courts, but we can't?
Well, there's different types of tennis courts, and Tiger and Steve can back me on this, but there's different types of tennis courts. Some have removable barriers for your netting when you tighten it, and ours are set in concrete at Mead Park. So that's how they probably were using it over there.
They probably had sleeves for the net post. We don't have sleeves for the net post, as Jake said. The other thing too is that the rink does freeze up and does freeze down, and you do get a certain amount of freezing in the ground below the rink, and that would affect your part 2 surface as far as thawing out in the springtime and stuff, getting ready for play.
Thanks, Steve. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the previous point. So you're talking about the structure of the tennis courts. I mean, obviously, costs are involved everywhere. So wouldn't it actually be worth putting on the table as an option? Because, you know, changing the structure of a tennis court might be less expensive than bringing.
I would have to rip up the entire tennis courts to do that.
Well, you'd have to rip up an awful lot to bring power into Kiwanis, for instance, and you probably have to rip up an awful lot to try and, you know, build a structure closer in other places. You know, I mean, it's an option that you can put on the table.
Three-phase power is brought in from the top power line. So it's a primary line that is brought in from the top. There's no digging or anything like that.
Okay, it was just a question.
Yeah, no, understood.
I mean, if it still might be worth actually doing an exploration of, you know, and if it is,
and we can, you know, we can. I just don't think that. Well, we'll look into it, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at this stage, it's just options on the table, right? So
right.
What was your take on the Y parking lot? It's already got the power. It's got the tall lights. So the one house affected by it has been used to those lights. It's flat. It has parking. It has a huge warming building. And the real thing is, Kiwanis gives the YMCA a very highly profitable camp here all summer. It would be so nice if they reciprocated. And for those 4 months that you're talking about, 3 or 4 months, let us use their already flat lit parking lot.
The YMCA parking lot is not flat. It actually all pitches down towards that grass field in the back. And again, if we were to take their parking lot, we're now eliminating their parking that they need by the town code. And we are then, that's where they do all their snow removal in the back.
The
So-
part I'm talking about is grass, not taking their parking lot for a rink.
Okay, okay, the rink, I don't believe that, the grass field is not lit back there. The parking lot is lit, but the grass is not lit.
No, there's very high lights in the grass field behind the YMCA beyond the parking lot. I drove there the other day intentionally to look at it.
Okay, I will go look at that spot.
Will someone be following up with Selectman Moynihan about what deed changes he's been negotiating on Irwin Park to see whether or not this would be something they'd like to incorporate, as you said, within the town ordinances of noise and lights?
Lily, Jay, can I answer that question? a minute?
Yep, go ahead, Steve.
It's not so much the deed restrictions, is about 6 years ago, the town was sued and we went to court and the Superior Court judge set stipulations on what we could do in Irwin. And one of them was that you have no lights, you can't have any loudspeakers or music, and there's no nighttime meetings. That was part of the court settlement with the Superior Court judge. That was about 6 or 7 years ago. And I know there's deed restrictions on what you can do in certain parcels, but those other restrictions were set by the circuit court. So we have to follow.
You mean when the neighbors sued,
Yes, that's correct.
which is where we may end up with this. So that's kind of interesting.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Yeah, I did have one more. Back in the day when this was overtly and honestly and forthcomingly discussed to be the hockey rink, and Tom O'Day was trying to have it done at Lapham on the mulch sites. Does anybody, and I think Steve, you would know, what happened to that? Why didn't it happen? And what about that location that he was looking at then?
Lily,
was
I
like
can
a
correct you.
covered-
It was not the leak mulch site. They were looking at the 6 acres of property that are unrestricted, that are on the corner of Lapham Road and Tamminshaw Road, and backs down to the Tamminshaw parking lot. There's a 6 or 7 acre parcel of land there that has no deed restrictions. It's unrestricted. The town can do what it wants to with that 7 acres of property. And that's the area they were looking to put in the rink in there, not the leak mulch pile.
So across the street on Lapham Road, kind of across from the mulch pile, but on the Waveney side, there's 6 acres.
You go to the end of Lapham Road and you take a right, all that property on the right-hand side before you get to Tamminshaw parking lot. That's all park land. It's unrestricted.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And so when Tom O'Day was trying to have it put there and bringing the kids in hockey shirts in and all that, why did that not happen? And can it still happen?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Tom is on the call with you, Sam, so-
Yes,
Can
Tom.
I answer that?
Tom, go ahead.
So, Lou, thanks for the question. So, 2008 happened. So, the financial crisis, the main funders or donors kind of backed out a little bit, and so the rink went from a $3 to $5 to $6 million project to trying to figure out how we could do a smaller project. And the hands-off Waveney people were quite active at the time. So really, the financial crisis is what ended that at the time, and the people who were opposed to Waveney.
So that property is still available then, the 6 acres in Waveney Park and Lapham and Talmadge Corner. That's
Correct.
unrestricted.
Correct. But the problem with that site is, well, I mean, look, it's certainly an option, as are all the others to be discussed. But the problem is both electricity, site work, and the cost. So there's pluses and minuses with all the locations. And one of those is that, it'll cost a lot more to put it there than at Kiwanis or other parts of Waveney or Mead even.
The pluses and minuses, though, of 9 out of 10 locations are not ruining the quality of life or the house value of dozens of budding neighbors and hundreds of people that are living in them and proximate, if you pick a densely populated residential neighborhood like Kiwanis. So yes, there's pros and cons to everything, but it's amazing how 9 out of 10 don't affect anyone. And yet some people have focused in on the one that is going to dramatically affect the quality of life and housing values.
So, I'm certainly not arguing the point, other than, people said that the sidewalks were going to ruin property values, and they actually improved them. So I wouldn't agree with the thought that it's going to decrease property values. It may increase some of them, but to your point, if there is noise that floods over to some of the neighbors at times, that certainly is something we need to address. I'm not arguing that point at all.
I have actually consulted with several real estate agents, and not many people want to build or buy a piece of property backing up to 24/7, 15-year-old noisy compressors trying to keep your ice chilled with tall lights and music playing. It's not a plus like a sidewalk so your kid can have somewhere to ride their bicycle and not get killed on.
No, I'm not. Well, I think you're getting bad information, because it's not 24/7, 365. And I think
I didn't say 365. I said 24/7, because the compressors will run 24/7 for 4 months to keep your ice cool.
Lily, with all due respect, they do not run 24/7.
And I don't think it's 4 months either. We're talking about to start with, but in any event, look, I don't think you'll necessarily hear it. I think we can do things that would make it you wouldn't hear it at all. So, but those are things.
And how am I not going to see? How am I going to not see the lights? Not hear the coach's whistles? Not hear the music? Not smell the idling exhaust while the moms are waiting for their kids to get back in the car?
We keep coming back to the moms waiting in their car. We keep coming back to 24/7, when in fact you can put sound shields around the compressors, as done in South School. And neighbors at South School have compressors there. They don't run 24/7. In fact, they also have buffers around them, just like the air conditioning at Town Hall has buffers around it, fencing, which is sound absorbing. So while this is a concern, as Tom has just said, there's a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation circulating around on some of these issues, and it does deserve further examination. But just to make these blunt statements, which are not explored or not understood, I think is not correct. Thank you.
So what are you doing about the lights that are going to be flashing in people's homes as the cars make turns as they come in and out of the house and out of the park? And as the lights are on, what are you going to do about that? You're going to put batteries over the rink so you cover the rink so we don't have to see lights?
There are town ordinances in place.
You seem like you're the only one that doesn't have an open mind about it not being in Kiwanis Park.
We're going down to name calling now. Anyway, there are light ordinances about how to control lights and how to address the issues you're talking about. I am aware of those things. Hopefully you are as well. And of course, we will be within the ordinances that are appropriate for this issue to protect town residents.
Or of course, we could, like Irwin Park, the neighbors could join together and legally have stipulations put on the park that are not there currently, just like Irwin Park, and reduce the usability when you could pick 9 out of 10 other sites that don't affect people negatively or cause illegal disturbance that we're going to end up having to go towards, just like the Irwin Park people or the Grace Farms people.
We could, of course, talk these things out or go to court to talk them out as well. Hopefully not. But again, we're not planning on just shining lights and glaring them into everyone's yard all the time.
This is, excuse me, just for a second, just so we don't, I just want us not to lose sight of something. This is a working meeting where when we were looking at the beginning of this meeting at the different sites, Jake supported Waveney as the top choice. Rana supported Waveney as the top choice. And Steve and Tiger and John supported Waveney as the top choice. I support Waveney as the top choice. And although the commission has to vote on this, it seems to me that you know, the focus on Kiwanis now, it doesn't appear to me, and Jake, please correct me if I'm wrong here, okay, if I'm trespassing here. It doesn't appear to me that Waveney, Kiwanis Park right now is a serious choice for the, for the rink. And so we may want to, keep that in mind before we get too exercised over this.
Absolutely correct. We have a list. I have a list. The committee has a list of locations because we need to be able to go against other options when we go to our vote on Wednesday. I can't just show one location and say it. That's it. I need to have a list, pros, cons, and that's the way it needs to be done. And Kiwanis happens to be on the list along with Mead Park that John just said he hated that idea, and another location that was talked about. So it's not just Kiwanis and Waveney. There's 4 other options that everyone needs to remember that are on the list.
Could I just ask a question?
Yes, Tom.
For all those people that are opposed to Kiwanis, would you support it at Waveney?
Well, Tom, as I wrote in several letters, what I would have supported is not one vocal small group being able to buy something and put the cart before the horse in terms of having a home for it, and rather to have a very simple survey of the town saying, if we had excess money, what new type of athletic equipment or sport would you like? And start from there, because maybe someone wanted a rollerblade park or something. I don't know. That's how I would have done it. I would have done it by starting to asking the people of the town who support this town through taxes, as well as employees through taxes, what they would like. And I would have had a prioritized list of the different sports and different facilities that they would like, instead of putting the cart before the horse, as has been done here.
No, Lily, I'm sorry, all due respect, you're wrong. We did that. We had a study done on what the town wanted, and the rink was number 1 or 2 of things that the town wanted. So we have that study.
Great, I'd love to see it. Was it 1 or 2, Tom? And what was number 1?
I'm trying to think. I think it was 1, but I'll get you the study.
Was this back in 2008 when you were doing the hockey arenas, or is this anything recent where people are maybe reprioritizing life in terms of COVID and coronavirus and what they'd like? Or was it an old study?
It was within the last, it could have been 2008 time period, or it could have been 2010, but Steve probably knows. But Lily, at the end of the day, you'd be the first person who said that Wink wouldn't be a good thing. We've done the studies. I don't skate. My kids don't skate. But I've always thought it was a good idea. And so far, I have yet to meet a person who doesn't think a rink is a good idea, particularly if we can fund it mostly, if not entirely, with private funding. So,
well, Tom, I've never said I don't think the rink is a good idea. I just said, when you asked me if I supported a rink, I was letting you know that I would have supported whatever the town voted to support, or was at least quantitatively market research tested on. So I'm not against a rink. What I am against is putting it in the only place out of 10 locations that are going to negatively affect the value of my property and my quality of life, as well as dozens of other homes and hundreds of other residents within proximity and within those homes. So I think that that kind of thing has to be a priority also for our town. I'm not saying I love hockey or don't. I think what you do need to look at is whether this is self-sustaining. We have had public-private partnerships on athletic facilities that have not been very fiscally sound. And if you start thinking you need out-of-town people to either be members of your rink or to come play games on your rink, there's deed restrictions on Kiwanis Park in terms of people from out of town, which then opens up a can of worms into, should we also have the deed looked at in terms of should Waikiki campers from out of town be here? It's not something we want to do. All the neighbors around Kiwanis lovingly embrace that happy kids little noise during the daytime without any lights, music, things going on like that. We're trying to be part of the town, and we're trying to do whatever the town wants, but it doesn't necessarily have to be one person's dream that this is where it should be. A person, it needs to be a logical decision, and it needs to be one that really does first do no harm and to be a positive. And if you have 9 locations or 4 or 5 that don't harm a bunch of people, I can't imagine why you would pick the one that does.
Okay, so based
Although
on
I know it's not in your district.
So what's that? What?
Although my understanding is that Kiwanis is not in the district you represent specifically. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, the district line is along Old Norwalk Road, but I've been working on this project for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so what district of mine, whether it's in my, I started working on this when I wasn't a state rep, so that hasn't played any part in my decision making or in my recommendations. So look, we're just, Lily, I think some of the things you're respectfully erroneous in is what the rink will be to neighbors. But look, I'm sorry I missed the first couple minutes of the meeting, but I'm happy to meet with anybody, and it's a park and rec decision. The reason we bought the rink at no cost to the taxpayer was because we got an unbelievable deal. And if the town ultimately doesn't want it, then we can sell it and make a profit, and which I don't want to do. But there's no, when you say the cart before the horse, I think it's kind of what you said, to paraphrase. That's just simply not true. This idea has been going around. I think Steve can articulate this better than I. But when Waveney was originally purchased, there was a design done, and there were 2 indoor rinks put in as a recommendation for Waveney. So the fact is that a rink has been something that's been going around as something the town has wanted since the 70s. So this is not something that's been willy-nilly and just done without due process and thought.
Thanks, Tom.
I'd like to ask something while Tom O'Day is in.
Go ahead, Betty.
Angelo had asked earlier in the meeting if we're going to have peewee hockey practice on the rink, wherever it's going to be. And the second thing is, I met with Tom O'Day back in November and had asked for financials, what he projects for the operating costs, the setup costs, and I still haven't seen that. So will those numbers be provided to the Park and Rec Commission on Wednesday?
So first, with regard to the Pee Wee games, I hope so. The idea is to have kids doing outdoor healthy activities, and Pee Wees would be perfect on the mini rink that we're getting. It would be wonderful to see the kids doing that, getting exercise outdoors where it's healthy and good for them. So yes, I hope so, and pray that happens. But at this point in time, that's up to the town to decide if they're going to allow Pee Wees to be on there. But I certainly would love that.
And are you talking about Pee Wee in evenings, weekends, early morning?
I don't envision it. Pee Wees wouldn't be playing in the evenings. The little kids.
Tom, when you say Pee Wees, you're talking of mini mites.
Yes.
So the age group we're talking about is you're looking at 3 years old to 7 years old is the age group that would be skating on an ice surface this size.
Yeah, and so Betty, I wouldn't imagine that going on at night. Again, that's something that would be up to the Park and Rec Commission whether they allow that. As far as the financials, it all depends on. So the financials that we had developed for the indoor 365 rink would be different than the financials for this mini rink, and it would depend on how many months it's open. So there's a lot of variables, but so to answer your question, Betty, I don't know what's going to be presented Wednesday. I'm kind of in the middle of session right now, so I'm a little busy, but certainly it depends on what the town foresees for the rink. If it's only going to be up for a month or two, you're not talking about, and you're not offering rental skates, or you're not offering any food, or it all depends. You're gonna have an outhouse, a porta potty. Like, it all depends on what the town wants as far as the cost to operate. It could be anywhere.
I understand that, but the comment that I've heard over and over is no cost to the town, but you can't guarantee that unless you know how many skaters you could get, the hours of operation, where the location is, the setup, the operating costs, insurance, and so forth. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the plan is to raise the money privately to cover those costs for the first couple of years. And then deciding kind of like whether it's going to be self-sufficient like the pool or not. And if it's not, you sell the equipment and you call it a day.
Tom, today, as of today, what is your goal to fundraise? 100,000, 200,000,
This is still a working
300,000?
meeting,
What is
everyone.
your goal today?
I don't have, I mean, look, I'd love to raise $6 million to eventually build an indoor rink somewhere in town, but that's not, that's my personal opinion that I'd love to do eventually. Maybe I'll win the lottery, but as far as for this rink, you know, I'd like to raise $100,000, $200,000, maybe more. It depends on how long the town wants us to try and operate and what they want us to do.
And how successful it is?
Well, no, it doesn't have to be successful at all for the first year or two, if we raise the money to cover those costs. So I think it will be. And in every rink I've looked at over all the years, if there's no debt that has to be covered and it's only a temporary rink, it's very easy to cover those costs with rentals and open skate. I mean, it's literally. It's not an issue. The problem that rinks get is when they carry too much debt and they've got to cover those costs. We're not going to have that. So the town can say, all right, let's do it for 2 years. And if you raise the money, and then if it's self-sufficient, keep going. If not, then sell the equipment.
Great, thanks, Tom. Okay, anyone else?
Just briefly, Tom, when you said that the town has wanted an ice rink since the 1970s, is that where was that planned for?
That was in Waveney. There's a scale model with 2 rinks in it.
On that property that you were looking at for the enclosed ice hockey arenas, the 6 acres?
No, it was a different spot. It was actually it was on this side. It was on the main side of Waveney.
Is it the parking lot softball field thing that is the #1 location right now that's being suggested? Or I'm a little confused when you say this side, which side?
Yeah, so it's near there. We actually, when we were doing it initially, we had paid for a land survey of that area. And the gas line was somewhat problematic when looking at the fields on either side of the softball field, when also putting in the rink in that area. But
that's the model. It's like a 3D model, you're saying, or just a flat plan that someone made through?
In the 70s, I think it was I don't know if it still exists, but it was a 3D actual model.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Steve, do you have that? You're the town historian, Steve.
In the attic at Waveney.
Is it really? Okay, I'd love to see it someday. That's so cool.
Yeah, so this is not something new. This was something that I wish that it was built. It would have been cheaper to build long ago, but
yeah, and I of course back then they weren't looking at Kiwanis, so I'm happy. And like I said, 4 out of 5 or 9 out of 10 of the sites that we're looking at make me happy. And if people want to skate and we can afford it and not burden the town, great. But let's pick it where it's first do no harm. So we have so many great sites, and I really appreciate you guys looking at all these sites and looking at all the pros and cons.
All right, thank you, Lily. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it, guys. Does anyone else have anything, or can we call this to order?
I think we can call the meeting. Yes.
All right.
Do we have a second?
All right. Do I have a second to call it to order? All right, Tiger. Thank you.
All right. Cool.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
Have a good evening.